Have you ever been fired by your mom? Yes, your own mom. This isn't a punchline or any type of twist that I created. This is a real story. It's a created legend because some people talk about humble beginnings. And Kareim Cade, our special guest here today, he's lived it. Most people that are out here chasing success and they're running from accountability, they don't want to have any type of transformation. But this brother from Detroit, Michigan, they really don't want to have the impact of interruption. But your story keeps you overlooked because you know what? At times you're afraid to tell the messy parts of yourself. You know, your package and benefits of who you are and how you're confused and your leadership. Sometimes it gets stuck, but being invisible, that's not something that we're going to talk about here today because you're going to have to be able to be open to telling your story. Kareim Cade got fired from his own mother, and in the middle of building his amazing insurance career, he didn't quit. He was able to keep fighting and go back to teaching and learn that the process is all about execution. He sharpened his skills. He was able to just one day at a time understand that life happens and you don't build legacies on execution. Kareim used his experience to build something amazing called the Great Lakes Benefit Group. And a lot of people actually will have the opportunity to know that the industry spanning insurance, and he's not only in Detroit, Michigan, he's expanded his practice to Tampa, Florida. So today, he's here not to tell you just how to be uncomfortable. It's more so to be able to transform businesses, to understand that life in action, it takes all the way for you to do the work. 3 things you're going to walk away with today is not about talking about Great Lake Benefits Group or how amazing this entrepreneur's resume looks like. The great thing is how to rebuild a team, how to actually be an outspoken and have trust and transparency, how to be consistent with a servant's heart, and even having a random act of kindness by showing up today for Adrian Mays on this live virtual conversation. But one line that Kareim stood out when I was doing my research, it was like he said, a lot of times you're drinking the wine, but sometimes you got to stump the grapes. In other words, stop waiting for success to easily tap you on the shoulder. You have to do the work in regards to getting to the end goal. If you're a coach, if you're a CEO, this is the conversation for you. Building upon who you are and having things one day at a time and sitting on the sidelines, that's not what this brother is about. He's about recording and showing that your truth is a tool in order to be a disruptor, in order to be the best version of yourself. You have to listen. And it's not always how God has it designed, but your brand is who you are. And a lot of people around the world just has something that just might need to be disrupted in regards to knowing that the greatness in who you are. And I am just honored to be able to have Kareim Cade from Cass Tech High School. And we go back and forth because I went to Renaissance High School. But this now, at this point, we're going to have a great conversation. I'm going to bring Kareim Cade from Great Lakes Benefits Group to the actual stage here today. My friend, my brother, Kareim. What up, though?
What up, though? What's happening, A? How are you, baby?
Amazing. How are you, my friend?
I am fantastic. Thank you for asking.
No, I just want to start out seriously by telling you thank you for even getting this started. You know, the random acts of kindness for this live virtual conversation, taking an hour out of your time. You know, it's funny. Your mom fired you, and I was doing the research in regards to it. But you know, her doing that is so instrumental in regards to who you are. So just talk about who really quick is Kareim Cade, the man, the legend.
Oh my goodness! Listen, I'm listening to you go through this thing, and I'm like, who is she talking about? I don't know that guy. Where is this guy? I'm looking for somebody else to come on the stage. I'm just a kid from Detroit to try to figure it out, you know. And as luck would have it, and God would guide me, it's kind of worked in my favor. But I'll tell you just quickly, you know, grew up on the west side of Detroit, and only child, and my friends would say that I kind of had the good life because I had the dual income family and everything seemed and appeared to be fantastic on the outside. And I grew up in an environment. I always talk about kind of 2 tales of the story, right? I got my dad's side of the family that are the academicians. They've gone on to get PhDs and all the good stuff. And I had my mom's side of the family that just were good, blue collar, but along the way, did a lot of, they were street entrepreneurs. And so I kind of learned from both sides of the track how to kind of make some things happen. And so over the years, that just developed into the person that I am. And so I'm excited to be here with you today and kind of share the story, but more importantly, hopefully inspire some folks to think about things differently, because there's never too late.
I love that, how you put that in regards to it never being too late. As even, let's even start about your mom firing you from the insurance business. Now, we both were in insurance. I even remember interviewing with you for a minute because, you were in group and I was in a Banker's Life with individual insurance. But a lot of people don't hear about their mom getting fired you in a story of a CEO. So what does that moment, Kareim, tell you about the power of everyday lessons that shape your future that God puts us through?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to go backwards to come forward and take a few seconds just to look at this. And so you got to think about this. When I went to Clark, first my parents were like, well, why do you want to go to Clark Atlanta University? And I wish I had a great story to tell you, Adrian, but here was my story. I saw the movie School Days. And when I saw School Days, I'm like, I want to go do that. What they're doing right there, that's what I want to do. And I remember them telling me that a lot of the movie was filmed on Clark's campus between Morehouse and Clark. A lot of it was filmed at Clark's campus. And so I'm like, this is the reason why I want to go to Clark. And all around the way, they're like, that's not a reason to pick a university. I had no idea what Clark was known for, zero. So I fast forward, I get to Clark, and my third year in, I'm having a great time. I'm partying day in and day out. I haven't seen a party that I don't like. And I spent a lot of time on the yard. So, but the thing about it was that my parents, I was blessed in that my parents were paying for my education. And so people are like, wait a minute, your parents paid, you didn't have student loans? No, my parents, I was blessed. I had one kid, don't be mad with me. I mean, that was my cards, right? So they were paying. The third year, I get a phone call from my mother. Remind you, there's no cell phones. I had a pager. She paged me. I called her, and it's my third year, and she says, hey, are you having a great time there at Clark? I said, I am. She said, we only paying for 4 years. I don't know what you're going to do, but we only paying for 4 years. Up until this point in time, Adrian, I had never seen an advisor at Clark. Had never been to an advisor, had never been to the Career Center, didn't know anything about even where it was at Clark. And so I went to see my advisor for the first time and said, what can I graduate with in 4 years? Well, I knew I'd taken a couple of insurance courses because my mother was in the insurance business. That's all I knew about it. Took a couple of real estate courses. Long and short of it, allowed me to be able to go through matriculate, and I finished up in 4 years. So fast forwarding that story, I ended up coming back to Michigan. And then coming back to Michigan, my mother did one of the most incredible things she did for me. She sent me to New York Life for training. I learned how to train, stayed there for probably about 6 months, then came over to what she was doing. And it's interesting because I say my mother fires me. If you were talking to her today, she would tell you this, Adrian, I didn't fire you. You fired yourself because you weren't willing to do the work, and she said, hey, I've built a practice over 20 years, and I'm not going to allow you to come into my practice and wreck it because you think that you're entitled. The way that I look at a lot of these kids today, right? That there's some entitlement that you should have this. And so she fired me. And at the time I was married, had been newly married. And she said to me, she said, there's no way that your wife is going to put up with you not bringing any money home. You need to go get a job. And so she fired me. That was it. It didn't take long. She's like, you're out of here.
Right. That's crazy. So even in that situation, and that sounds like you're just married, and getting fired, how did you actually transform through that? Like, take that on and let that be a lesson.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was tough because one, here's the thing about my mother. If she was here, she would say, hey, he's not a mama's boy because he would be doing all the things I would have told him to do. But
right.
It's interesting. I'm born on my mother's birthday. So we have the same birthday, right? So I'm very close to my mother. So for her to fire me, it was like a gut punch to say, wow, I knew for me, it meant that she was disappointed, right? It wasn't so much about the firing. It was the disappointment because she understood that I could do this if I chose to do it. But I was just bullshitting. I was not taking things seriously. And I was just kind of hanging back thinking that it was going to happen. In my mind, and here's a nugget for entrepreneurs. The worst thing that happens of being an entrepreneur, it's the best and the worst thing, right? Is that you have all your time. And so in my mind, because I had all my time, I'm like, hey, I can kick it. I can get started maybe about 11:30, 12 o'clock every day. And I'll never forget her calling me and saying, do you know that my number one agent has been out since 6 o'clock this morning? He's had a breakfast meeting already. He's seen 3 or 4 potential clients. He's written business already. And that's before 11 o'clock. And you're telling me you're just leaving the house at 11 o'clock? You 5 hours behind my number 1 producer. You can't make up that time. You know, you don't have enough time left in the day to even compete with that. And so when I looked at that, I said, oh, you got to be kidding me. This is something different. And so I had to transition. The good thing that I had going on at that time, Adrian, is that I had gotten involved at that time with
Imagine
Amway.
being able to build
Folks know the old school Amway. I'd been able to get an Amway, and they were teaching me to read books, right? So I was reading books and listening to cassette tapes and just shifting my mindset. And so I think the blow, as much as it was hard to come from my mom, what kept me afloat was that I was reading, I was listening, I was getting around positive people. So I still maintained a positive attitude. I just realized that I had to have some personal accountability, and that was something that I did not have. And so I took time, went and taught school, as we talked about from there, taught school for 2.5 years. And during that 2.5 years, I spent that time working on me.
And when you taught school, now you were a substitute teacher though too, right? Now, what was it? How was that just in itself and that experience? Because
it was wild. I have so much respect for educators. We do a lot of work with educators today. And I think because I spent that 2.5 years, I understand what they go through, right?
Right.
And so I was a substitute teacher for probably the first 2 months. And then I ended up at a school, Emerson Elementary School in Pontiac. And I was a substitute teacher, or what they called a ESRP, emergency sub in a regular position. And so I ended up getting a regular position for the next 2 years. And I taught special education 3rd and 4th grade. And it was a changing point in my life. It was a changing point in my career, because prior to that, Adrian, I was always good at talking. I mean, I didn't have a problem talking. It's probably why, if you remember back in grade school, you got conduct grades. And so I would have good grades, but my conduct was ridiculous because I was talking all the time in class, right? So I didn't realize until I started teaching that, as well as I was able to speak and engage people with conversation, I was a horrible listener. I was just a horrible listener. And so these students in that 3rd and 4th grade special education class, and most of them were learning disabled, so I didn't have any emotionally impaired kids, but they taught me how to listen, because I had to figure out how to get them motivated, how to make them move, what was going on. And they brought so much baggage with them that I didn't even know or understand some of the things that they were dealing with and why they could not learn until I dealt with some of those things. So it required me to learn my listening skills, man. And so I honed in those listening skills. And for 2.5 years, I did more listening than I did talking. And that changed my life. It changed my whole trajectory of where I moved on from there, because I realized that even from a sales perspective, it had less to do with talking and more about listening.
And that's kind of funny that you say that too, because one thing that stands out about Great Lakes Benefit Group, just kind of looking at what you do now in regards to the amazing company that you actually own. When I was looking at like the different pillars that you all are stand on, being transparent, utilizing technology and giving people opportunities. Just in regards to those teaching years and you getting knocked down, my friend, how can you inspire people to kind of step forward in your truth? Like, in regards to being who you are.
Well, I'll tell you, that took years though, Adrian. That took years, because at the end of the day, for the bottom line is that you got to get so comfortable in your own skin. And I spent so much time with some of that kind of inferiority complex. Okay, I graduated from Clark Atlanta University, HBCU. I'm going into rooms now with people who have Ivy League educations. I'm going into rooms where, people have Big Ten educations. And I started to question, am I able to go in here and compete? And so for years, I think they refer to it in today's term, kind of this imposter syndrome of you're just trying to figure out, do I belong? And let's face it, in my space, specifically in insurance, typically with African Americans, they are on the property and casualty side. They're going to be in your homeowners, your auto. I mean, they own a State Farm, they own a AAA, whatever it may be. They've got that scenario. But getting into the group side of benefits, I was always the only one. So it took years for me to build that belief inside of myself that I was able to, and not only was I able to, but I was supposed to be there, right? And so that authenticity came over years. And I can tell you and tell your listeners that a lot of that came from what I was reading and what I was listening to. I had to pour into myself to believe what it is that I thought that I was able to accomplish, what I thought I was able to do. I worked on me. I have this statement, and I've been saying this statement for years, Adrian, is that you are the same you no matter where you take you unless you work on you. And so I listen to people over the years that pick up and they say, well, I'm going to move to Atlanta because it's going to be better opportunity. Guess what? The only thing that's constant is that you're the same person that moved to Atlanta. So I don't care whether you go to Atlanta, whether you go to Alaska, whether you go to California. If you haven't done anything to work on you, you're just taking the same damaged person to the next location, and you'll find a way to be able to blame that location as to why you don't have success either. And the only thing that's constant is you. So that was the thing that worked on me to now. The authenticity is that I'm me 100% of the time. I don't care what the room is.
That's amazing that you say that. It's funny. I heard the only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary.
Yes.
So in other words, you have to put the work in to make change. And like we've talked about as well. And the amazing thing, like with insurance, people don't understand the impact you can make in somebody else's life and just being covered. Like talk to me a little bit in regards to like when you realize your journey transitioned from teaching at Emerson School in Pontiac to being, the founder and CEO of Great Lakes Benefit Group and make a game changer in the healthcare industry.
Well, I'm gonna tell you that's a great segue and a great question. Here's what's interesting is so that 2.5 years being in that school, when I went back before I left, my mother was involved in what is called payroll deduction or voluntary benefits, and so all that simply means is that we had access to go see individuals inside of a workplace and talk to them about insurance, and so. And it was being taken out on a payroll deduction basis. And so for many people, they don't manage well with their finances. And so it's a little bit tougher for them to manage a checkbook, do ACH on a monthly basis. And so this was a great way for them to get in. So I tell you that story to come back forward. During that 2.5 years, I'm listening, I'm reading, I'm working on me. I'm sitting in my classroom one day, and the classroom I'm sitting in Pontiac, unfortunately, it was an older building. And you could kind of hear what was going on in the classroom next door. So next door, I think I was on my prep period, if you will. So I can hear what's going on next door. And there's a lady next door talking to the educator, selling her insurance. And so I hear her selling insurance. I'm hearing it. And I hear through the door, through the walls, I should say, that she's talking about the carrier that my mother worked with, Colonial Life. She's talking about that carrier. So when she's wrapping up, I get up and I go outside just to introduce myself to her. I introduce myself to Tammy Gibson Reynolds, and it's still a sister today. Tammy is next door selling insurance. I talked to her. Lo and behold, as God would have it, I can't make this up, Adrian. She worked for Colonial, but she also worked for my mother. And so she worked for my mother, and my mother was always telling me about this RN that left being a nurse to come into the insurance business, single mom, and how she was just knocking this thing out. And so I go out and I talk to her, and I realized from having spent a little bit of time in the business before my mother, that in that period of time, this is one of those things where money motivates, right? In that period of time, she sat down and I kind of remember how to calculate commissions. And I'm like, well, shit, she probably made about $600 in that 20 minutes that she was sitting in that classroom. And I think as a sub at that time, I was making $119 a day. And I'm in here dealing with a whole lot more than, I'm like, wait a minute, 20 minutes, you made $600. I make $119 a day, and I put up with a whole lot of nonsense. As God is my witness, that day, I quit. I quit that day. So some people will say, wait a minute. But again, just to be fair to the listeners, 2.5 years of working on me, though. So I was ready. I just needed something that was going to be the catalyst and impetus to take me over, right? And that day, I said, I quit. I quit my job that day. And I felt bad because, you got kids that kind of, have gotten attached to you, what have you. But I was like, I quit. So I go home. I never forget this. I go home. I tell my damn ex-wife, listen, I'm going back into the insurance business. And that turned into a fight. She was like, that doesn't work. It didn't work for you before. It's not going to work for you now. You didn't make any money. And so that's the other thing I would say to people who are entrepreneurs on this call, that at the end of the day, you got to have somebody who's supportive. If you're going to take that move, There's nothing worse than going out and getting your ass kicked trying to build a business and coming home and getting your ass kicked too. I mean, and so that was it. But I was just determined. At that point, I'm like, I left the job. Here's what I do. I called my mom. Oh my God, if she was here, she'd laugh at this. I called my mom and I'm like, hey, Mom, I want to come back to the business. And here's what she said to me. She said, well, listen, nothing is any different than when you left before.
Right.
It's the same process. I'm not going to give you anything additional. Here's what my agents do. Here's how you need to go about doing it. And I'm like, okay, I'm committed. And I think she realized this time that she could see something different, that I was truly committed. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to make this happen by all costs. And at the same time, at that time, you would get the periodicals in the mail, the little journals and stuff, the sales journals before. This is way before, I'm dating myself, way before the internet was just cranking that out, right? I'd have the mail. And so there was an agency that I was watching in LA. Actually, they were in Long Beach, a gentleman by the name of Bob Blake. Bob Blake was running a successful African-American gentleman, running a successful agency in Long Beach. And I had just been watching his numbers for those 2.5 years. And I'm like, look, I want to know what he does. What does his agents do? They were all going to President's Council every year. And so I called him. And so here's another nugget for folks. You know, you're not a priority on other people's calendar. So I called Bob 16 times to get Bob to finally call back. And he knew my mother. He knew one of my other mentors. And he finally got back to me like, kind of what's going on. I'm like, hey, I just want to come out and see what you guys are doing out there in the business. And if I can come out there for 3 days and just kind of model what you guys are doing. And finally he said, okay, yes, you can come back. And this time I go back, I start working with my mom. So I'm starting from zero. You got to remember, I left my safe $119 a day, you know, a check that was keeping the bills paid. Now I got a wife at home that's like, yo, you don't make any money. And I'm like, and I got a mother who's like, yeah, everything is the same. I mean, you can come back if you want to. And I had to make a decision. And I went out to California, took every dime I had, went to California, rode with those guys for 3 days and came back and was like, okay, we're going to build this. And everybody asked the question, what did you find out about when you went to California? What was different? And the only thing I can tell you, Adrian, is that they went to work every day. I mean, I wish I had this just incredible story to tell the listeners like, oh my God, I saw this and I saw this and I saw their processes. And here's what I saw. I saw a team of folks that went to work every day. I saw a team of folks that had a classroom in their cars. When I got into their cars, they weren't listening to any music. They were all listening to, whether at that time it was Zig Ziglar, whether it's Tom Hopkins, they were listening to sales techniques. They were listening to things that in between that appointment and their next appointment, they were reflecting back on what happened in the previous appointment. They just had a different methodology. They were doing it on purpose, right? It was intentional sales. It was intentional learning. And they got up and did that. And I'm like, oh, damn, this is what it takes just to be intentional, to do everything on purpose and intentionally. I can do that. I can go because I can control that though, right, Adrian? I mean, the other stuff that I maybe not be able to control, I can control somebody's going to buy from me, but I can control being very intentional about what I was going to do. And so we came back from that experience. And this is prior to Great Lakes being established, but I give you kind of this window. We came back from that. We were the #1 office in the country 3 years in a row. We made the USA Today, paper, everything. And all we did is come back. I came back and taught what I learned. And what I learned was intentional. I had to start training people intentionally. I had to start giving them what it should feel like. And it became the culture, right? And I think that people, so many times when you lead an organization, you don't think that culture matters. Culture matters. I created a situation where my agents were willing to walk over hot coals and broken glass with no shoes on, just to make sure that the culture stayed in place, right? And so that changed the whole trajectory from our business. And for me, it took me from zero to 100 real quick, as they say. I went from 0 to 100 real quick. And this was in my 20s. This was going into my late 20s. And so it changed the game. And we've never looked back ever since then.
So that was amazing in itself, my friend, because you brought out a lot of good things. And one thing I always loved about you, my friend, is your power of networking. Like, even if it's via Zoom, I don't care if it's face to face, but like even before we jumped on here today, you were telling me in regards to just going to Tallahassee and seeing someone face to face and being able to leave your footprint in the rooms. What would you say in regards to like when these setbacks happen?
Yes.
You know, and that's what they are sometimes, right? But it's sometimes God puts you in setback or set up for the next step. Talk to me a little bit about how much
Yes.
of an impact is networking and having these mentors that you, like you said, you went out to California and sat and listened and watched to see what it looks like to get to your end result versus that
Yes.
$119 a day. So
$119 wasn't gonna do it.
So in regards to what is the power of networking and being authentic in your networking as well, because your brand and your business is who you are and who you represent when you go anywhere. So how important is networking in whatever you do?
Well, I think I'm gonna tackle two things that you just asked, because I think the first thing I want to tackle is the mentorship. To me, mentorship is the shortcut, right? That is the shortcut to success, is mentorship. And so anyone that's going about it on your own and too prideful to ask somebody for help, that just doesn't make sense. You know, to me, why do I want to repeat something that has already been done? That not makes sense. Now, I'm not saying, here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying doing something that somebody else says can't be done. I'm just saying, because I'll be the first to say, when somebody tells me that I can't do it, like, okay, that's the reason why I'm going to do it, right? So I'm not saying that I don't want listeners to misconstrue what I'm saying here. But what I am saying is that I remember one of my mentors saying to me that if you can imagine, Kareem, you're on the highway and you're driving, and whatever car you want to do, put yourself in a sports car, model you like, top down, you're driving, and you're driving on the open highway, and all you see is open road. He said, and imagine me as your mentor. I'm in a helicopter. He said, and we're going the same route. He said, the difference is the sight and the vision that I have 5 miles ahead, you can't see. You can't see. So to you, everything looks like all the lights are green, all the things are happening, and it's no big deal. He said, but I'm telling you that there is a detour ahead. There's a roadblock ahead. There's an accident ahead. There's all these different things that are ahead. And as your mentor, those are things that I can tell you that you won't see because you've never been down this road before. And that stuck with me. I was like, dang, okay, you do have a different vision and the helicopter than I went on the car. I'm on the ground and everything looks fine. But you got vision in sight that goes miles down the road that I cannot see. And so the mentorship has always been the shortcut for me. That's been the key of saying, okay, how did I grow the business faster? I had four good mentors across the board that came into my life at different periods of time. And what I would say too is that you never know. We talked about this briefly before. You never know who's listening. You never know who's watching. So these were mentors that literally, with the exception of one, I asked for mentorship. The others saw something in me along the line and gravitated to me and picked me up. So that was important in the journey, was to have mentors, and still having mentors to this day, right? I always say, okay, Michael Jordan had a coach, right? I mean, so somewhere along the lines, that means that Tiger Woods had a coach, and we can go and Serena had a coach. Everybody still hires a coach. Coco Gauff just fired a coach and picked up another coach to change the way that she does things, right? So it changed in this last match we just saw, right? And so when you look at that, you got to look at it and be open to mentors that give you mentors, coaches, however you want to look at it, that give you insight to something that you cannot see because it's the shortcut. Now, leaning that over then to networking, I can tell you that is it. My daughter would tell you, my daughter's 23, you know, Selena. My daughter's 23, and I tell her all the time, God forbid something happens to me prematurely. Surely you'll be well financially, but the most important thing that you can get is make sure that you have my phone with my contacts, because in that phone, there are contacts, and these are people that know you because I talk about you all the time. These are people that know what is happening in your life because we have true relationships. And I think that that's the main thing that people get caught up and they miss it on networking, is that they're always looking at what they can get. And they forget that this is a give and get situation, right? It's got to be, what are you bringing to the table? It can't simply be, you know, what are you getting from somebody? What do you bring to the table? Even to a mentor, you still bring something to the table if you're thinking about it in that way. And so networking for me is intentional. We laugh and we joke. My daughter tells me that I'm a dinosaur because, of course, and some of your listeners will say, they might tune me out from here on out, right? And they say, well, wait a minute. You know, you don't use outside of LinkedIn. You're telling me, you built a business on LinkedIn. Yeah, I built a very strong build on LinkedIn, but I also built it on my brand of being in person, networking and talking with people. And I don't care how good we get with the electronic platforms. I respect them. I've seen people that build their business faster than me, all those things. I am big on, I maintain relationships. If the computer goes down and you cannot market, I can still pick up the phone and call somebody. And my key to that, Adrian, is always this. Everybody can call somebody. Everybody can't get a call back.
Let's go. I love it. I love it. But the reason why people call you back is it's not just because, you know, when you show up somewhere, you're authentic. It doesn't matter. You are who you are. I love that about you. But sometimes it's scary because people have fear of success and they have fear of failure. Now, you talked about a little bit before you transitioned, you know, into teaching, and you had to go and go back and look your family in their face, go look your mom in your face after failure a couple of times.
Yes.
Walk me through, how did you get through those pain mentally? Because it all starts with your mindset and the fight and the drive for you to keep going to be who you are today. Because it wasn't by mistake. You had to get through, you know, the conversations with you. You're not good enough. You know, you're not making enough money. Like, how did you do that? Like, what helped your mindset to keep you going through those moments when you were still in that car and you weren't at that helicopter seeing what the end result looked like?
Well, I'll tell you, and this can sound a bit cliche. I'm like, oh, we're here to go, but it's my truth. It was faith. Like, I mean, if you're gonna build a business, you gotta walk in faith, because you can't see it. There's no blueprint. Yeah, you can have the best laid business plan, and heck, that don't mean anything at all. And so my faith was what allowed me to stay sane in a time where, you know, all hell would seemingly be breaking loose. And I'm like, well, how do we figure this out? How do we get through this? And it was just leaning on my faith, you know, to be able to say, okay, God, you know what? There's nothing I can control in this situation. You can control whatever you're going to control. And if this is not for me, then let me do something different. Let me be in a different space. But that faith is what still sustains me, because now it just changes, right? You know, I tease people all the time, and I tell my mother, I say, you know, when somebody calls me and say, hey, they need $50, I'm like, yeah, well, I need 5,000. They tell me they need 5,000. I'm like, I need 50,000. I mean, payroll is this week, right? You know what I mean? Whatever it is. But my point in all that is that each time I've come to those situations where I've had challenges, I can only lean on God and say, okay, God, I need you to help me get through this, because in and of myself, I'm a wreck. You know what I mean? And most people know me, and you've known me for years, Adrian. I always say I'm the most positive, optimistic person that I know, because and I'm consistent, right? I'm not. You don't find me with ups and downs. If there's some downs going on, most people never even know that. And that's not to be fake or phony, or, you know, like I don't have issues. Yeah, I got issues all the time, but because of faith, I can lean and say, okay, let me put this over here. God, you got to work through that. Let me control what I can control, and what I control is show up with a great attitude, because whoever it is that I'm meeting with, they don't have nothing to do with whatever my challenge is over here. So I don't need to put that on them, right? I can show up with a great attitude no matter what the heck is going on. And I've been around people that anytime that I think that my challenge is that big, Adrian, it doesn't take long to look at somebody else that is not in the situation that you're in, that would love to have your cards. You know, I can remember one of my mentors saying one time that if we were all sitting in a circle and we would put all our problems in the middle, that I'd be reaching for my problems back, because you see some problems from some other people and be like, yo, I don't have that problem in my life, you know. And I never forgot about that. I'm like, oh, okay, let me manage my problems, because somebody else's problem, it looked good, looked shiny, looked like they got it all together. And you watch them and they go kill themselves, you know what I mean? Or whatever the hell it is, because they didn't have anything else that would sustain them. And so for me, those failures, I looked at failures and saying, okay, here's an opportunity behind this, right? You know what I mean? Here's the situation. How do I take this and shift it and change the winds, if you will, to go in the direction that I want to go into? Because there's always going to be something. It never stops. It's something every single day. But how we approach it changes the game. And so that to me would be how I've been able to maintain over years, would be the faith would be there. The mentorship obviously would be secondary. And third would be execution. I can tell you that I sit with people who are very pragmatic. You know, they got methodologies. They're I tell them all the time, it's analysis paralysis, right? They just sit down, they can tell me all the reasons why the plan is that. And here, meanwhile, I just go like, let's go. Let's talk about it. And so I get into these discussions with professors at higher learning institutions, and they're telling me all the theoretical, this, that, and other. And I'm like, listen, I'm telling you how I built this from the boots on the ground. There is a difference than what you're talking about in theory and textbook, because execution is everything. And so it's taking that failure, taking those chances when you said, okay, well, this didn't work, let me tweak it, but never quit. So here's the last thing I'll say about this. How I stayed in the business this long was I mentally prepared myself and said that in my networking and all the things that I was doing, that if I always had an appointment in the future, I was always going to still be in the business. So that was my deal, is that if I kept having appointments in the future, I would stay in the business. And so I've always had appointments in the future. That's been 30 years. And so I've never been able to walk away. It's because I'm like, oh, I got appointments in the future. And that was always the thing that kept me going, is that, when you don't have any appointments in the future, then it's quick to quit on yourself. You can quit. You can say, okay, I don't have anything. But when you know you got something and you don't know if that next one is the one. I'm not a golfer, but I hear about the golf folks saying that, hey, when you hit that one good shot, you might have had a horrible 18 holes, but on hole 16, you smack that ball. That's like enough to make you come back. Yeah. My deal was that if I always have an appointment in the future, I'm always in business.
But you know what? That's crazy that going through this random acts of kindness thing, like you said, the appointments, and you don't know what God has designed, right, for your next appointment. But if you don't make that phone call, if you don't show up at that meeting, if you don't just present yourself how it's supposed to be, you miss out on the opportunity.
Absolutely.
But one thing that you mentioned that is huge, I love the relationship you have with your mom and your daughter. Like, how important is family in regards to your support network, in regards to like communication and the growth of who Kareim Cade is today?
Oh man, that's everything. That's what I do it for, right? I mean, when it's all said and done, that was it. So my daughter, again, as we mentioned, 23 years old, and I'm thankful that she's off. Hey, she's off the payroll, y'all. Everybody says she's a girl. She's never off the payroll. Well, again, when she was 9, I started programming her, and I would say to her, you're coming off payroll. You're coming off payroll. And she actually believed me. She was like, "Oh, my dad is really going to kick me off payroll." And so, but that's it. But it was the most important thing. And so, as you talk about life and life's challenges, I said in an earlier segment that, you know what? Yes, I was married at a point. So I was married for 17 years and was divorced. And so, if you might imagine that's a shift. That's a change. I mean, everything changes. So, although I think we're both better for it, going through it was a challenge. And at the time, my daughter was 9 or 10 years old. And so how do you balance that? And one of the things that I did early and when she was born was that I made sure that when she had things going on, I had my assistant to always put those things on the calendar first. Because one of the things I didn't want to do, one of the things that happened for me is that with my father was a true old school baby boomer, workaholic, work, still defines him that he's gonna be 80 in March and he's still working. Like it's the end of the day, like he has to, right? But the point of that was that I can remember going to functions, I can remember going to fun outings, and he was always working. And I never felt good about that because I never really got that time interacting with him during those formative years because he was working. He brought work everywhere he went. And so, many people talk about not doing the same thing that a parent did to them, but yet we still find people that do it, right? And so I was determined that family would be first and that balance would be it. And that if I only made X amount of money versus making this amount of money because I spent no time with my family, that wasn't worth it to me. That the most that I would ever get, I tell Selena all the time, she's my biggest investment, right? That's the most return that I get. The return on investment that I'm seeing from her today is amazing, right? And that's not for me, it's for her. But I know that then we put something in her, but it's the time that I spent with her. So that family piece was the most critical point to me, was that, hey, if I'm doing this and I'm looking to build a business, I'm not looking to build a business and lose my family at the same time. And I look at so many kids that are damaged because the mother, the father, or both chase the career, gave them the money, and the kids, they jacked up. You know what I mean? They're jacked up across. They don't know how to deal with failure like we're talking about. People shield them from failure. I've never shielded my daughter from failure. I never tried to take all the bullets for her in front. No, you got to take these bullets yourself, because this is how you learn, right? This is what's going to make you stronger. And so the family piece was always a piece. Living between Tampa and Florida, every time I come home, if I'm home for a day, 2 days, Selena lives in Toledo, which of course, you know, is probably an hour, 45 minutes, an hour from Detroit. I go see her every time I come home. And so people were like, well, you know, your kids should come see you. You know, you're the father that. No, she has her own home. I'm going to visit her, but everything is intentional. So I talk to her every day, and people say, well, I can't get my kid to call me. I'm going to talk to my kid in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But that was fostered from when she was a baby, because it was important, right? And so the family piece is the most important piece that I have. And it's the true sign for success for me, is that when people look at my kid, I'm going to share this real quickly because I'm excited. This just happened today. I just got pictures today. But my daughter, the company that she works for in Toledo, she got an opportunity to travel on the corporate jet today. And so here it is, my 23-year-old is on the corporate jet. And she's like, yo, Dad, I parked in the parking lot, wheels up. You know, we got lunch, we got dinner. I'm like 23. First time I was on the corporate jet, I think I was 36. And so I'm like, this is amazing that, you know, and the unfortunate thing, you can't share that with everybody because people think you're bragging. And I ain't bragging because it has nothing to do with me. It is her work, but it's also what she and her mother and I instilled in her, and that she saw the work ethic. She saw what it took, and even through divorce. And I would love to say it was a clean situation of divorce. Hell no, it wasn't. You know, it was a lot of bumps and bruises along those ways, but she was able to sustain it. The other thing that I did, and we can move off of this one, but you know, the other thing is when I went through that divorce, and I say this to dads that are listening to us today, is that I fought for 50%, period. It was nothing to talk about. I was not going to be a weekend dad. I was not going to be relegated to taking you to Disney World. And I told my daughter from the beginning, I won't be the phone call that you make every time you want something. That's not going to happen. That's not the relationship we're going to have. If that's the relationship you're looking for, I can pay child support, give it to your mother. That's to be all you're going to get, and we'll have no relationship. And so that was at 9. So people say that's a pretty heavy conversation to have at 9, but it was a conversation that you couldn't shield the kid from, where I saw my ex kind of do some shielding, and that's not bashing, but some shielding. And I'm like, no, you need to know how these things happen, because in relationships, you're going to see things like this. And so for that reason, every other week for 26 weeks out the year, I did that from 9 until 18. And so that I cook dinner, and I can't cook a lick, Adrian, but you know what? You know, I found some chicken. I go get a rotisserie chicken, get some broccoli in the bag, and some bag of rice, and we're going to eat. You know, I figured out how to make it happen. You know what I mean? But that relationship, you know, that changes the game when you have that kind of relationship with your kids. So I just implore people to have those relationships with their family. And for the men who unfortunately may go through some sloppy divorces, it's upon you to fight for that time, because other than that, we understand that the kids get tainted and start thinking things are different than what they are.
And the crazy thing is, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because you know, Anika being my business partner and family, it extends over into your work as well, because who you are in regards to how you are with your family. Being at your family reunion with Smile Doubly Photable was freaking, oh my God. It still rings in my head, because family is so important. But taking that into, like, with your family at Great Lakes Benefit Group, how important is it for you to kind of take, you know, not because you didn't do it alone. And there's no way that we can. But if you didn't have like a Percy, or if you didn't have a Rob in regards to Nicole, and you know, these people really literally help you in regards to your journey and who you are, and building this billionaire brand of what you represent as well. How important is it, like, you being this person to your daughter and to your mother, and telling other people and showing other people how to do this? Because I love that you guys talk every day and you know, connect and be able to just be because you design however you want to be. But same thing with business, like, how important is Great Lakes Benefit Group and everything that you're doing beyond that? You know, you have that tie of family, because that's what it's all about.
Oh yeah, that's it. And I'll tell you, we started early on. You look to create that culture. 2014, I found myself in a situation where I just was not having as much fun in the business. And I realized a lot of that had to do with just the folks that I had around, right? The agents that I had. And so at the height of people, not the height of business and growth, because I'm gonna go somewhere with this, but at the height of people, I had 50 people working in my agency, and it was a machine. I mean, and we cranked. But I had, at the same time, every day I would come into the office, I would have somebody waiting at my office door. I had to listen to the sad stories of what's going on. And as a leader, you got to keep on listening. And so I'm like, oh, this challenge go. And I understood, because these are all my folks were 1099 commission folks. So if they're not making any money, I ain't got no gas. So you come in, and I mean, my whole first couple of hours was just people coming in. This person took a piece of business from me. And I was just outdone. And as God would have it, I gone to a buddy, had an open house for his law firm. And there was the wonderful Jane Gaynor, who became my business coach. Jane from Toronto, she was there. And he was talking about, hey, this is my business coach. So I'd heard people talking about business coaches or what have you, but I never thought anything about it. But so I ended up hiring her to come in to evaluate not only the agency, but to also evaluate me and what I was doing, what it looked like, and to allow others to provide feedback to me for this family thing that we're talking about. And so when we got done with the process, Jane looked at me and she said, well, listen, there's one or two ways you can go. Obviously, you can continue down this same road. Surely you'll make money. You won't be happy. And you'll be sitting in this same state. Or what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to shed some of this weight in order to be able to look at those people that can specifically do things that make sense and find out how you can do more with less. And so I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. That's a different perspective. And so when you talk about the folks that have been with me, Percy and I have been together now 22 years. Percy came to me, we met. And when Percy met, he stuck with me throughout everything. He's one of the few people. And Rob and I have known each other since fourth grade. So when you start thinking about somebody that you work with, one of your best friends since fourth grade, something different. But what ended up happening in that process of 2014, we got rid of everybody and got down to about 15 people, Adrian. Literally, I fired everybody. So one of the things as a leader is that you got to know when it's time to make other decisions. And everybody doesn't want to, they don't want to make the tough decisions. And so that was something that I had to learn early on, is that I've got to be willing to make the tough decisions. So the joke in our office is they call me Suge Knight. I don't know if that's good or bad. they call me Suge Knight, you know what I'm saying? Like, Suge came in and he came in and disrupted and got rid of everybody. But Suge ran his organization by fear. I don't run my organization by fear. No. It was simply about who needs to be here and how can we do more. And so one of the things that we looked at is we looked at a model where people were getting massive results, and they had 7 to 10 people working in the firm, but they had specialists, people who specialize in particular areas. And we took that model and said, let's try to model this. One of the hardest things I had to do was that my right-hand person that had to work with me for years, I found out through this process with the business coach that she was a cancer in our organization. And I didn't want to believe it. I mean, she was. And when I finally came to grips with it, I had to part ways with her. And this was my road dog. I'm talking about, she had been rolling with me for years, but she really did. She had a fear. She intimidated with fear. That was kind of her thing. And I just always kind of looked past it because we making money, Adrian. And so I think for business owners and leaders out there, you can be making money, but hell, if it's causing a cancer to exist inside the organization, it's actually eroding your foundation down. And I had to realize that it was eroding my foundation down. When we got to that smaller group, I talked to those guys and told them, hey, listen, this is what's going to happen moving forward. We're going to have to kind of start and do some things differently than we were doing before. I'm going to ask you guys to take on some responsibilities that some other people in the organization were taking on then. But if you can stick with me, I'm telling you, this is where we're going to go and move forward. And that has been our model since then. We took off. We've done way more business with less people. The last couple of years, that's 12 years now of being, 13 years now of kind of coming out of that and saying from the start of kind of doing initial work to then going and shifting over, change the game. It changed everything that we did. It changed profitability. It changed the stress levels, and the family unit now is so important. You know, Michelle, that's in my office. Michelle, I always, people ask me all the time, who's the most valuable person on our team? And it's Michelle, right? I get a chance to go out and get the accolades for going out and being the face. But when you call our office, Michelle, it starts with Michelle. The interaction with Michelle is just critical. Michelle's been with me 15 years. So you're hearing the tenure of folks that have been with me for a long period of time, and they understand our secret sauce. Our secret sauce is strictly how we engage with our folks, the culture that we have. And when we're dealing with clients, we're dealing with vendors, they all say the same, like, wow, you all are refreshing. This is a breath of fresh air to see an organization that works like, and again, you know, I tell them all the time, yeah, I'm president and CEO, but when we're sitting in those meetings, I have one vote like anybody else. I've got one vote. Now, I do remain, you know, I do remain having the power to say, hey, I just don't get to use it often. So Rob always says, he says, I'm the president, him, Percy, and Michelle are Congress. You know what I mean? And so keep from blowing up stuff, you know, because I'm quick to say, hey, I'm out. This deal don't make sense. You know, I ain't begging nobody to do business with us, you know. So, but those are the things to your family question. That same thing, how I treat my daughter, the same thing that how I deal with my mom, my family that you met in the family reunion. We are a family of Great Lakes Benefit Group, and when one hurts, we all hurt. When one win, we all win. And I've always treated them as partners. I've never treated them as these are my employees, even though everybody's on some form of payroll, right? Whether it be 1099 payroll or on W-2 payroll. And so that has just allowed us to really function well. And those folks make all the difference because it is indeed family.
And I'm laughing. I have this up to here too, because like when I was doing the research on your LinkedIn, it says how to connect with me, Hawkins, M. Hawkins. It doesn't say anything about Kareim. You need to contact me, M. Hawkins at Great Lakes Benefit Group. Like, she is the boss. She is the boss. She is amazing. So like I said, like people don't see, and we talked about this a little bit before we even jumped on, people don't see, they see the president, they see the CEO, they see the healthcare strategist, you know, they see all of these successful things, but they don't see the work and the grind that goes behind the scenes. So tell me in regards to like, what do you want people to know about the sacrifices and like the behind the scenes things and grind that shaped who you are right now?
I don't want them to know that it takes work, right? I mean, anything worth doing is worth putting in the work. And so the work of something specifically when it's something that your baby, you own it, you created it, you're breathing life into what happens with it, but you cannot take out all of the pitfalls that go along the way because that's who makes you who you are. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have the different setbacks, if I didn't have the challenges that came along the way. So I embrace those, you know, I embrace those. Whereas before I would try to run away from them. Now I like to hit them head on. Let's go, let's deal with it now and let's keep it moving. And so anyone that is squeamish about work, first of all, you know, I don't care whether you're working a job or whether you be an entrepreneur, but I can tell you what, as an entrepreneur, you're never going to make it. You're not going to do any work. You're never going to make it. I think the one thing that I would challenge folks on though is this kind of mentality. And I used to be a part of this group where it was just the grind. Mm-hmm. And I've shifted over the years to be like, yeah, the grind is real, but enjoying the journey is more important, right? Because I think you can grind, and you miss all of those important milestones and family members situations and other people around you. And nobody wants to be around a person that's just talking about damn business and work all the time. Like, I mean, I had to realize that there had to be some other sides to me. What did I do for hobbies? What did I do for other things that kept me, it may keep me close to work because I'm always going to find a way to talk a little bit of work somewhere along the lines. But I just think that people have to understand that work that you put in, you know, when you're putting in that work for yourself, it's a different deal. And I look at earlier entrepreneurs and I watch how they work. And sometimes I look and say, well, wait a minute, you work 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week from your employer you just left. And now when I ask you what kind of work you're doing, you're working 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week because you think you have freedom. You've got to work for yourself as hard as you're going to work for somebody else. I mean, it just makes sense that I would work for myself just as hard, but with some form of balance, because everybody gets caught up in the grind. I think when I do see all these posts and different things that go on, everybody's grind. And I get it. But when you look in their life, their life is shitty. You know, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense to have a shitty life and forego everybody else because you're looking at the grind. What balance can you bring in? The other thing that I would just say in that space is finding that time for self-care, right? What is it? I mean, early on when I first started my self-care journey, this was probably 20 years ago, I would start, and every Friday I would go to the movies. My staff would tell you this. I had a date that every Friday by myself, I would go to the movies. That was my deal, is that I would go on the movies on Friday and I would catch a matinee movie. And part of it was because I wanted to prove that I could. Like, I was able to go sit in the movie. It was something psychological about it for me, that other people were sitting at their desk, they were working. And I'm like, oh, I chose to come to the movies on a Friday and nobody told me that I couldn't do it. And I paid the price to do it. So it became the first part of kind of my self-care deal of what am I going to do for me? Because one of the issues that I suffer from, one of the diseases that I have, Adrian, is I do for everybody else. I'm always for everybody else. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. That's just how I'm made, right? But I had to realize that in self-care and in some self-love, there were some things that I had to do for myself. So along that journey, you got to do that, because outside of that, you will find other things coming to take place. That's going to be whether it's going to be your drugs, it's going to be your alcohol, it's going to be gambling, it's going to be women or men, it's going to be whatever. You're going to find something else to mask that deal. And you'll justify it and saying, because I grind, I should be able to go drink. I should be able to. And I ain't saying, no, I drink, I smoke, I'm a cigar guy, I'm all of that. I'm just saying you will find that you begin to mask that, as opposed to finding some self-care for yourself, where you're making sure that you're taking care of yourself along the way, and you don't end up falling into the buckets where you're leaning on those things that are not healthy long-term anyway.
And it's crazy that you know how my cousin, as I managed Chris's, I had to bring this up, his organization, Chris Bosch in Toronto. And when I was doing that, I hate myself now on this sober journey now. I hate myself when I had those opportunities in the room with those billionaires, with the Toronto Raptors, the president, Larry Tannenbaums, all these people, and I was drinking. You know what I mean? Right. I'm going to the bar. I'm missing out on opportunities. And I bring all that up to say, because then where you are now, that everything transforms, it brings who you are. Yes. And so in saying that, how important, like you said, the grind, because now I see grind in a different way, right? Yes. I grinded so hard for his millionaires, 2-time Hall of Famer. So how important is the grind for loving yourself? Because I can tell you one thing in this sobriety journey that I've learned, because you are people pleaser just like I was, in regards to like giving, but people don't, when you turn around, you're like, wait a minute. How important is it to love yourself through it all, bro? Like the naysayers, the ones that say that you're not going to make it, how important is it that self-talk for you to be the best version of who you are?
Oh, that's everything. Listen. I mean, so I tell my guys all the time, I'm just confident. Some people may take it as arrogance every now and then, but I'm like, I'm confident because I love me. I fool with me. So because that's it. If I don't fool with me, how can I expect somebody else to fool with me? And how can I teach somebody how they should fool with me, right? Because for so long, I let people kind of go whatever route they were. Right. But I fool with me. I'm always working on me. And as long as I'm working on me and I'm developing me and I like who my me is, then whatever anybody else thinks. So I stopped thinking, even as you mentioned, the people pleasing, I had to realize that for me, that's just who I'm just a giver. So I give with no expectations. I could care less because I love me. And I know I love my haters. I love my haters. I mean, if you don't fall in love with your haters, you're doing this thing wrong, right? You know what I mean? Right. You're doing it all wrong. I love for everyone who sat back and watched it. So now you look up and you say, they're like, oh, wow, well, it's great to see you here. I'm like, well, I knew I was going to do this all along. I have an aunt. I have an aunt that I remember at like 16. And this is the aunt that I've kind of, over the years, I mean, we're good, we're not good. But it was always because she would bring her negative vibe to me about what couldn't be done. And I just remember at 16 standing on her porch, and my mother would tell you this story today. I said, when I get my license plate is going to say, why not me on it, right? And so, because she would always say, you can't do that, you got to go, you got to blah, 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 blah. And so now that same aunt, fast forward, she ended up being my chef, my nanny, my everything for my daughter when I went through my divorce. I was paying her. She was on my payroll for 7 years. You know what I mean? And it's cool. Me and aunt, we cool to this day, but she was the hater. And a lot of it was driving because I had this hater that just said I couldn't do something. And that was back then. And then along the way, I picked up more haters along the way. And so you got to embrace that. That deal to me is wonderful when somebody's hating. I mean, you know, and it's probably the reason that I don't understand how people get caught up on social media on these people who say something about them that, you know, and I'm like, you don't even know that person. I mean, you know that person. Why you care? Why you care? Because they said something. I never feel any way about responding to a post on LinkedIn and somebody say, oh, well, maybe this ain't it or it. Whatever, that's cool. I mean, that's your thought. But I fool with me, Adrian, all the time. And so those are the reasons that you're able to go out and sustain yourself when all hell is breaking loose, because you believe in you. So I believe in me. I believe in the vision that God has given me. And I know that I can outwork a bunch of other folks. And outworking them, that doesn't always mean just grinding. That's the networking. That's the mentorship. It's all the other kind of things that, you know, I have a saying to my team that we got to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time, right? And so that's been a part of our brand, is being everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So you might find me here today, somewhere else tomorrow. You know, we're coming to Detroit today. Then Saturday we'll be back in Tampa. Then Sunday we'll be in Miami. Then Tuesday we'll be back in Detroit. Then Thursday we'll be in Chicago. So, you know, on the outside looking in, I'm everywhere.
I love it. And that's what Melissa Green, thank you so much for coming up. And she said that self-care equals a more healthy lifestyle. And that brings me to what Unica was sharing with me yesterday in regards to Taylor Townsend, you know, with the US Open being going on right now. And I thought it was so amazing how she responded to the controversy that was going on in regards to her and no education. And I was reading the Bible or what have you. And, you know, what the Bible says is if you give it power, and I had to say, if you give anybody power in regards to those words, she was just mad that she lost. You know, so you can't give those haters power, and you can't give, you know, the one thing that you can do is know that God has a plan. And that's one thing that's been all throughout this. And I definitely want to be respectful for your time. I knew this was going to happen because we always have amazing conversations. Before I jump into the top 8 really quickly, like, how do you balance though, Kareim, like being an amazing son, amazing father, amazing friend, amazing mentor, employee, volunteer. You volunteer, you know, you've given to our foundation of CCC Because We Care Foundation. You've given it to your employees, bro. And then pour into yourself too, by the way, right? So how do you balance all of these different amazing things? And even like Melissa Green just said, like in regards to self-care and bringing the best version of you, how do you balance all those things to be the best version of who you are? I know that was loaded,
well,
bro. I
think it's doing it again. It was, but I can tell you again, it's intentional. So looking at that calendar, right? And what I've always looked to do in working with Michelle was to put those things that are most important to me on the calendar first and build business around it, right? So because other than that, you're gonna be out of balance. I can tell you will be out of balance, nothing to talk about. And so in doing that, I've always taken the time to say, hey, wait a minute, I've got to have some concern. Well, now I'm gonna tell you, I'll miss it. Because most people look at my mother, you know, friends, they're like, man, you were just gone all the time. You never stop running. And so my dad says to me all the time, he says, his favorite thing to me is that, what are you running from or what are you running to? And I'm like, wow. Yeah, I'm like, well, why, Dad? I just enjoy life like this. No, because nobody runs like you run. And so I think when I look at the balance of it is that everybody's balance is going to be different, right? And so making sure that self-care. So for me, whether it's massage, travel for me is everything. I'm a travel 24/7, right? And that helps me to be able to create the balance. But it starts with my calendar and managing my time first, and just not letting any and everybody take up time on my time. I have another saying that, you know what, I'm pretty good at wasting my own time. I don't need any help, right? I got it down to a science, Adrian. I don't need help from anybody else in wasting my time. I got it down, trust me.
Right.
So I think in that balanced space, you know, for me, it's about doing it intentional. When it does not happen intentional, it does not happen because you just get caught up in that rat race and just going. But when it's intentionally, I'm going to intentionally do this. I'm going to intentionally go and do this thing today. I'm going to intentionally take this time for me today. I was never, E would tell you, I can't stand series, right? I mean, I got commitment issues with series. Like I don't want to watch it. I want to watch a movie and be done with it. And so she's got me watching a couple series. And so with those series, even committing to that, because in my mind, I'm like 30 hours of TV time, that makes absolutely no sense to me. You can tell me I got to catch up on 6 seasons. You know what I mean? I can't make that make sense, but in that balance of working it in, I'm like, okay, it is okay to do this. It's okay to take some time and just kind of chill. And I don't have to be, on the go with that so much. But I think it's just intentionally for me is how I've been able to maintain balance, is that I do it on purpose and I don't leave it to happen chance. I don't let everybody control my space. And my team is like, you're gone all the time. And this is one of the beautiful things now, post-COVID of having Zoom and all the meeting spots, is that I can be anywhere and still get my balance in at work and say, okay, let me pop in between going to the beach and relax, or between going to sightsee. We tie all that stuff in together, but intentionally would be what I say to you.
Definitely. You finally finished the series, The Chi, finally, right?
You finally,
the game is the one that actually taught me how to relax too, because I coming from Detroit and the grind and the grit and what have you. It's like, when do you breathe? And so, but when you have a passion that's so, I thought that equal work all the time, but you learn that in time, it's important to be able to, slow down. So before I go into the top 8,
think about this too, though. The journey is short. I bring up when we start looking at, and I think it is, but of course, rings in for all of us in this age range. But I mean, when you talk about the Malcolm Jamal Warner situation, right? The unfortunate situation that happens there. You're 54 years old, so I'm 53. So for me, you start looking at you get paid. You ain't got here yet, but once you get over 50, that mortality table starts clicking in your head. You again, as my dad would always say, I got more behind me than I got in front of me, right? And so that deal really starts to, you gotta work with yourself on that, because you can get caught up in saying, wow, you know what? I mean, 20 years, I'll be 73. That sounds crazy to me that I went from, graduating college to 53 in this short amount of time, which seems short to me, right? So I think that's the other piece of just that balance piece, is that if you don't enjoy it, we don't know. I'd like to say that I'm the guy that's going to bless me with another 40 plus and I'd be good. But if the lights went out today, I tell my family all the time, if there was a such thing as reincarnation and my suit came up, they would be like, no, you can't use that suit. He wore out the elbows, the knees, everything done in his suit. You got to retire. Retire my jersey. That's what I'm retire my jersey. Hey, you can't use this jersey again. This number's retired.
But that's what I thought. So it was so instrumental when I saw Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift get engaged. She's a billionaire, he's a millionaire. The money part is cool, but when you find somebody to actually enjoy it with you, like that's what I see for Tay-Tay. Like, they're finally, finally being able to live and be the best version of yourself, but doing it by yourself. Like, that money is one thing; it comes and goes, and we both have journeys, been around millionaires, billionaires, but if you had people that wanted to know one thing about this conversation and leave in regards to tonight, understanding a little bit about Kareim Cade, what's one message that you will want to actually leave here today?
I'll just tell you, energy is a game changer. And when you start talking about energy in a room, you start talking about energy, just walking and being around people can feel an energy. And so people are wondering, like, how did you get in this room? Or how did you X, Y, and Z? Energy. People were attracted to if you make yourself attractive, people will be attracted, right? I mean, it's just that simple. And I think a lot of people walk around and they are not attracting what it is that they want to attract. And that's not to sound all hokey. And I ain't one that's going to get into horoscopes and crystals. That ain't my game, right? I'm just telling you, the law of attraction is a real deal. And I think for me, when somebody walks away from a conversation with me, I want them to feel that energy that is not manufactured, it's not made up, it's not contrived, it's not something that I'm trying to be all energetic. This is who I am. When my feet hit the floor, this is who I am 24/7. And you don't need to be as energetic as me. I'm not talking about energetic. I'm talking about energy. What do you give off? What is the aura that you give off that will either attract or actually repel people from you? And so if there's anything that they'll get from me, is that they know that I attract people. I attract what it is that I want to see happening in my life. And some would call it manifestation. They can call it whatever they want. I'm gonna say the law of attraction is a real deal.
I love it. You're unapologetically you, and that's the piece that will set you apart from everybody else. I think that's why I drank like I did, because again, I was trying to be like everybody else. I'm excited like this all the time. I'm happy. Right. I smile. I don't care what's going on in life, because God has me for a better plan. So I just trust that so wholeheartedly. So just being unapologetically you is just amazing in itself, my friend. So for anyone that feels stuck listening, that doubting themselves or have a fear of taking or change in general, what would some words of wisdom be?
Hey, take the first step. Nothing changes without taking the first step. That is it. Take that first step. Be willing to jump out to the unknown and get comfortable with that, right? So my saying is always that I'm uncomfortable being comfortable, Adrian, period. Like anytime that I feel that I'm comfortable, I get nervous, because that means that, hey, listen, I'm not growing. I'm not doing anything to shift or to change. And again, with this journey being so short in life, constantly changing. That's the thing that we always know. That's the constant. Change is constant. It's always going to happen, whether we want to do. I can talk about the AI world and how much I don't like it. Guess what? They didn't ask me. It's happening with or without me. Nobody's asking me, Kareim, what do you care about AI? Nobody gives a damn, right? So it's going to happen. And it's the same thing.
You got Robbie in your AI group. You got Robbie. Is that your AI people?
That's Rob. Rob created that. So it became Robbie because Rob created it, right? Whatever. Let Robbie do all the work. So with that, it's like that with us though. So if you think about this, and I thought about this sometime. I had this conversation with somebody about AI. Think about how AI grows. It grows because you keep on training it, right? Yep. You keep on training. You feed it with new information. So why would we be any different?
Right.
Why would we be any different? We change because we get new information. We see it from a different perspective. We're looking at different things. So I'm my own AI. Right? I grow me, and I got to keep on feeding me with more information and looking at different perspectives, such that I can do it. Because that's all the hell we're doing with AI. So we're gonna feed the machine, but we're not gonna feed ourselves. That's ludicrous. That makes no sense.
That's a mic drop. I'm my own AI. So, so real quick, my friend.
You a basketball player, I'm the AI to answer, baby.
Right. That's Allen Iverson for the people that don't know come on, right? So if you could be a superhero character, I'm Flash, right? Who would you be and why? What superhero? If you could be one superhero character.
So it's interesting. I've been asked this before, and I'm gonna tell you with oh my God. So I would be Black Panther. Now, so why Black Panther? Not just because he's black, right? That would be too easy. Yeah. That'd be too easy. But when you looked at the principled leadership that he had, when you looked at the humility that he had, and what I really loved about it more than anything is that him and his awareness, when you look at all other superheroes, you can pick out particularly what their particular thing is that they do. He was a culmination of himself and his leadership that allowed him to be able to go out and do the things that he did. And when I take that even further and extrapolate it out to saying Chadwick Boseman and saying, look at this is a dude that in a short amount of time made an impact that will last a lifetime. We get caught up on the quantity of years as opposed to the quality of years. And so for me, it's looking at what that represented and the way that he handled it. And of course, it does help that it was with our brothers and sisters that, you know what I mean? I get a chance. Just that knowing that we just came back from Africa and saw those folks, I'm like, yo, look, that's it. But to me, it was the principled leadership. It was the way that he moved, the humility that he had along the way. Those are qualities and characteristics that I would like to say that I embody and that I look to lead with. And so for me, he would be that, and he just got out there and kicked ass when he needed to, and I feel that way.
And that is literally why I asked that question. You were the first person that actually got that, because the reason is superhero characters, they have a characteristic, traits behind it, and so you can align what superhero characters with their character traits of the individual.
Yes.
And so that's really honestly and you're the first person that actually got that, so that is hilarious. So tell me, if there was one food you could ever eat all the time, forget weight or anything like that, minus watermelon, what would be that one food be, and then why?
That I would eat every day.
Every day.
I can tell you right now, I can eat shrimp tacos every day. You can cook them for me every single day. Every day. I am a taco fan. I can eat a soft taco, hard shell. I don't care how you do it. I can eat Mexican every single day. But wait, I'm kind of a fake Mexican because I don't like beans though. So I don't want no beans or nothing though. Hey, so let's be clear. I'm kind of a plain Jane because of that. I can eat Mexican every day. Give me some guac, and you give me some guac and some chips and a doggone shrimp taco. Game on every single day.
Game over. I love it. I love it. Now, where are you originally from, and where do you call home now? I don't know let me hear about this weather question.
So here's the crazy thing, right? So I am hardcore Detroit, as you know. I'm Detroit. Look, except for them Lions, I ain't no Lions fan. We know that already. How about them Chiefs? I've been a Chiefs fan since I was 13. But with that, so I was born in New Jersey. I was born in Livingston, New Jersey. My parents lived out there for a couple of years. So I lived out there for 5 years and then came back to Detroit. So Detroit is what I call home. That's all I know. That's where I grew up. That's where I got, that Detroit grit and all the other pieces that come along with it. And since that time, I've lived in Atlanta, of course, when I was in school. Then I lived in Cincinnati for a moment. And now I go between Tampa and Detroit. And that is merely just this sunshine down here, Adrian. It's something different than that gray sky. I'm Detroit news because we're coming up there today. And I'm like, damn, they got on jackets up there already. It's like 55 degrees this morning. I'm not interested in that.
I see you had on short sleeves, so you need the jacket to come back up.
Yes.
So what's your favorite place you traveled to and why?
Oh wow! I can tell you, I've got a more recent one, and I've been blessed to travel a lot of places, but I just went to Marrakesh, Morocco, and I think probably the emotional piece that I had actually touching down into Africa was one thing, but the people were just beautiful people, right? The people were beautiful all the way around. They were some of the nicest people that I've come in contact with. Just in every person that you met. It was across the board, and so that piece of it was huge. The food was amazing. I'm a foodie, so the food was absolutely amazing. And just being there again and knowing all of what has happened and transpired from Africa to us leading up to now living in the United States through generations and generations and the transatlantic slave trade and that kind of stuff. It was something emotional to be a part of, to touch down there. So I just think those people were fantastic people, and the way that they welcomed us with open arms was just amazing. And again, I've traveled a lot of places, and I can't say that I've ever felt like that before. So that right now is my absolute favorite place that I've traveled in the years.
I love it. I love it. Now I have what day, or mine is Toronto, so the people, the culture, the Chris was playing. The love, the same reasons, but they have all like the little cultures right in the city. So the two guys still give my love. I've been a lot of places. So now, what day, holiday, or season would you say stands out for you? I claim now my sobriety date because November 20th, 2023, I'm reborn. It's like a whole new Adrian peeling back the layers. It used to be like Thanksgiving because for our random acts of kindness for our foundation, but now I'm seeing that if I be the best version of Adrian and just peel back all these layers, I can help in so many more ways. Forget finances. So do you have like a day for you that is like amazing for you, that stands out, like a holiday or a season that just is just perfect for you?
Yeah, and this is gonna sound real arrogant and nonsense, but 7/22/72, that's my birthday. So hey, I was born on 7/22 and 72. I like to think I'm the golden child, like Eddie Murphy movie. What I mean? The only thing I missed it by was I was born at 7/24. Had I been born at 7/22, you wouldn't be able to tell me anything. But my office staff, they know it. It's called. We refer to it as the national holiday. It's on my calendar. National holiday. And for me, it's my day, right? It's a day that while I share it with others that I may not know, of course, with my mother. And here's the crazy thing: my mother, my grandmother, and one of my best friends, all July 22nd. So we all celebrate together, usually every year. We try to find a way to celebrate together on the 22nd. But the 22nd to me is my day. So, it's not the day for everybody else. It's mine. I own it. And that's my special day. Hey, it's the national holiday, 7/22/72, baby.
It used to be my birthday is September 6th, but I had to change it to this new rebirth of who I am. That's amazing. I love it. I love it. Now,
I like it.
You dropped so many dimes here today. Do you have like a book or a movie that is just your greatest for mindset that helps you through like tough times?
For a mindset through tough times, so from a book standpoint, I would say Rich Dad Poor Dad has still just been one of my favorite books, right? And so from a mindset, just it always kind of jerks my chain back into this beautiful thing we call capitalism, but understanding it from a different perspective, right? Because sometimes if you can get caught up listening to the news and what they want to feed us, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it is what it is, right? They try to they try to change and shape us how we should think and believe. And so this was one of the first books. I got a hold of this book in 1996 when Robert Kiyosaki first came on the scene, and it still has been one that's been a game changer for me. And one of the other ones for me, from being in a sales standpoint, is How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. And it's an old school book, but it just gives you a ton of information and knowledge base from an old school perspective, right? And so anytime you start incorporating, as I see you have here on the screen, Dale Carnegie into anything, it's just a game changer, right? And Frank Betcher does a fantastic job there in that book. And then from a movie standpoint, if I'm looking at movies, that's a great question. Hey, I hadn't thought about that from a mindset standpoint of what movie makes the most amount of sense to me. So that's one you got me stumped on. I don't know, and I've got probably a bunch of them that I watch 24/7. But so I can tell you. All right, so if I'm gonna look at a mindset standpoint for me, I'm probably gonna tell you anything like Gladiator, 300. Braveheart, like all of those movies are my movies, right? Because it was all mindset. How do we take on 300? How do we do more with less, right? You know what I mean? Get these guys going. Gladiator, just being that dude and continue to go through. So fighting against the evil powers, right? So all those are my deal. I'm like, let's go. You know, I'm the first one. Like, let's go. What we talking about? Let's go. So those would be a movie for mindset for me.
And so, and we agree on the same movie or the book in regards to Robert Kiyosaki, but for my movie, I have to actually say Sinners. Like,
that's good.
The one part about Sinners, have you seen that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
The one part about it was you have to invite people in. I'm not going to spoil it for people, but you got to invite them in. That was the mic drop. So
that was.
You can go back to tap younger Kareim on the shoulder and tell them one thing, the younger self. Tell them one thing to prepare for where you are now. What would younger Kareim say to? What would you say?
What would Kareim say to younger Kareim right now? Is listen, at the end of embrace failure. Embrace failure. Period. If you embrace failure, the sooner you embrace failure, you know, life is a whole lot easier. And I think that think about growing up in my space. It was okay to fail. Now it's not okay to fail. The parents are blocking the kids from. I mean, it's just we got a whole culture of folks that just think that you're supposed to win 24/7, and that failure is not an option. And to me, I would tell my younger self, the faster that you embrace failure, is the quicker you can move on.
That's it. That's it. And so, how would you describe, my friend, your brand in one name? We might share the same word, so I'm not going to say mine. But if you were to describe your brand in one word, what would you say that your brand represents?
Energetic. Not my brand is energy. It's all energy. The brand is energy at all times. And again, I'll tell people that, hey, I'm an acquired taste. Everybody doesn't like you and I, Adrian. We're you know, I look at it and say we're Tigger And then you got Eeyore over here that, they like, I hate Tigger. You know what I mean? We just do bouncing this always, and nobody can live life feeling this good all the time. No, you don't, but I do. And so I'm a Dr. Pepper or a squirt. Everybody don't like me, and I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? I'm an acquired taste because the energy level is what it is. But I think that would be what it is. Our brand is energized, it's energetic, but people around us, they know that, they feel that, and it's a different kind of energy than what they've been accustomed to. And so for me, that is what I always want to leave people with, is that the energy, it changes rooms. I remember the old adage of that you can either be a thermometer or a thermostat. And the difference is a thermometer just measures what's going on in the room, and a thermostat can change what's going on in the room. And so I've always wanted to be a thermostat. How do I need to turn the heat up? I need to cut, what I mean? That's a game changer, right? While other people are just simply as a thermostat, they're just managing what's happening. It doesn't matter whether it's hot or cold. They ain't looking to change nothing. They just gonna sit in that situation. I'm like, no, let's turn that heat up.
I know that's right. I love it. I love it. My word is resilient. So, just through it all, it doesn't matter in regards to what people do, think, say, you can do whatever you put your mind to, because God would make any mistakes, and you're exactly where you're supposed to be, perfectly imperfect. So that thermostat, I'm gonna have to steal that one, bro. That was amazing. but Kareim, my friend, my brother, I truly not only thank you for giving this random acts of kindness of your time, because that's the most valuable asset that anyone can have, but the time today, for just leading up to this live conversation, but also for what you do as an individual, just like I mentioned before, as a son, as a father, as a friend, as an employer, as a mentor, as someone, a volunteer, all of these different titles, that they're just titles. But when you walk into the room and you show people who you are by being a model and living this thing called life, there are no mistakes. And I'm so blessed to have you in my journey. I'm so blessed. My best friend is with someone that actually loves and appreciates her as well, because there's nothing in this world that is by mistake. And God's design, when you own it and is accountable for it, I'm just thankful to be a part of it. So thank you so much.
Look, happy birthday too. I know it's in advance. Look, happy birthday. I mean, 46. Look, you trying to get in the game.
I'm not 50 yet, but
I got shoes your age. You know what I mean?
We're gonna get the jet. We're gonna go ahead and grab the corporate jet, and then go.
Come on now. Look. I need to call my daughter. She on the corporate jet. And I take a person today.
Right.
I gotta get my weight up.
Much love, brother. Thank you so much for today, and I'll get the testimonial later because I know I took more than time enough. I appreciate you, though. Okay.
Absolutely. Appreciate you too, baby. Okay. Thank you. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Come on. So Kareim takes the longest live virtual conversation that we've done. But you know what? On the honest, I am so thankful for today in so many different ways, because if someone was listening that needed to hear the story, they needed to hear what can happen when you can put your boots to the ground, like he stated, and just have faith and believe that there's a next level. That's what these random acts of conversations are about. It might be someone that might be going through social media and just seeing someone that may relate with them, may look like them, may have that same story in insurance and education, may have failed and not been able to have that support system that's needed. But the great thing is, if you just keep showing up for God, God has the last plan out of them all. You just start loving yourself, believing in yourself, and taking it one day at a time. The best version of your story is the story that you have. There's no rules or written. This isn't like, we're not gurus. We're not any type of, we do have education, but one thing about education is it consistently keeps going. You never stop learning. But when you stop learning, that's when you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you stop building. But you want to be the best version while you're on this side of the earth. And I'm so thankful for the process. So hopefully you enjoyed my brother sharing with us today how getting fired sparked Kareim Cade's multi-city insurance agency, going from the sunlight to the grays of Detroit, Michigan. What up, though? But the great thing is we're able to do it. We're able to live it, and we're able to grow every single day. So drop in the comments, love, even when you're watching a replay, because again, he took the time here today for my random acts of kindness live virtual conversation, building these billionaire brands one day at a time. September 6th. Don't even be late. But you know how we end every live. I can, I will, I shall be victorious. What up, though? Detroit, Michigan, let's go. We'll give Tampa some love, too. What up, though? Deuces.